session is a brainstorming discussion on the new normal, bridging bricks and clicks, a topic at the heart of the evolving education landscape. Leading this session is Mr. Yashwardhan Burad, Co-Founder and CEO of AccioJob, an alumnus of IIT Delhi. He began his career with organizations like Simon, EXL Services, and General. He later co-founded AccioJob to make tech education more job-focused and accessible. Today, the platform has trained thousands of students and is backed by Y Combinator and Meta Ventures. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Yashwardhan.
Last call. We can do it. Last call. No, we have to storm this day. That will be storm. Yeah, I think the session has more questions than answers. So we and right after lunch, so we have to keep it engaging. So I don't want to lose it off. I first said context about my journey, what we've learned along the way, most of it the hard way, and hopefully a few potential pitfalls ahead. We are able to get together out of this conversation in this room and probably avoid. Right. So yeah, right. Perfect. I said context about my journey and AccioJob's journey, and it's taken fairly longest till now. We spent 6 years in this market. Started in 2019. The idea and problem statement was very clear that how do we solve for employability in fresh grads, right? There's all kinds of things that 94% are unemployable, don't have basic skills in place, right? And that is when the journey started. Started tinkering with a couple of ideas, like, amateur entrepreneur does that. This idea will change the world. And we built an MVP, we went to colleges, we tried to deploy it. The idea was that how can we really democratize job opportunities across every possible college in the country? Because even if the talent density goes down in whatever we categorize as tier 2, tier 3 colleges, there's still folks skilled, talented, ambitious, and how do we get to them? Right? That was the initial idea. And when we started executing it, at the first year, we started getting the harsh reality, which market teaches you that the customer really doesn't want this, right? And neither the college wanted this, and the student who actually wanted a job didn't have the skills or the appetite to actually convert it at the pace we would want them to really get placed, right? That is where we could very clearly see that we'll have to really go deep and take the harder problem statement and match pictures to upskill these guys. And right now we work closely with them, help them grow confidence, personality, hard skills, soft skills, to actually become employment ready, right? COVID came in, and initially all our focus was directly working with colleges. How do we get to work B2B? And COVID changed that. We can go B2C here. That's the only way we'll make some progress in this year. The rest, and that is where the first how we started the upskilling business was through a pay after placement online boot camp. This was targeted, just to say context, this was targeted for my target persona was a third year, fourth year STEM graduate, already graduated, still struggling, 0 to 2 years working guy who is wishing to transition their job role, get into a higher growth segment or get into tech, right? And since it was pay after placement, getting initial traction and pull was much more easier, right? So that is where the journey started. Of course, initially I'm fortunate to have 3 more co-founders who are all matchmates from the same college, have known each other for 10 years now, right? So all of us had roles to play. 2 of us were instructors, 2 of us were handling placements, opportunities, right? And that is where also 4 of us, I think the first 6 cohorts of our pay after placement online boot camp. These were 6-month-long programs, very tech rigorous. Student spends almost 3 hours in live with us every day, and another 2 to 3 hours really going through the grind of solving problems, exercises, assignments, right? And it did really well initially, right? We were able to filter a lot of the input funnel which we were getting because we had a selection process. Since it's pay after placement, you get the power to command a selection process there. We were able to do that. Were able to get a good input quality, were able to get outcomes fairly soon on starting these cohorts also. And revenue started coming in, of course, post-placement, which we started figuring out that how do you really work with loan partners, this, that, etc. Right? And 2020 was about learning how do you get audience to us, how do we run a cohort, how do we manage those operations. And 2021 is when we started scaling it up, right? When we had this confidence that end to end we can run this funnel.
we can deliver outcomes at the end of it, and that gets monetized to make the unit economics of the entire model work. 2021, we started scaling it up. And as we started scaling it up, I think we started seeing a lot of challenges with the pure online ISA model, right? Where as you start increasing enrollment size, volume, drop-offs increase, the student, of course, has much lesser skin in the game and has a lot of convenience in their mind ki karunga to karunga, nahi karunga to chhod dunga beech mein se, right? Where you start seeing that as you scale, your working capital is stuck for an average of 9 to 10 months, where you start getting those outcomes for a median percentage of the batch. And then comes the problems at scale of collections, right? Because the student essentially is employed, he's gotten his first salary. That is when we were collecting our revenue from it, right? And collections business is a hard business. I never want to do that again. So we could see isko scale karne mein there will be continuous problems, right? And continuously monitoring that the input funnel is highest quality will take a lot of toll and will like cut across a lot of people who might not be highest in aptitude, right? But a few loose intent people might come in, which we don't want, because what we realized out of running and upskilling was you want those high intent folks first, even if you take a compromise on the aptitude to a certain benchmark, right? And that exactly starts spoiling it, because these high aptitude but low intent folks are the most likely to drop off, are most likely to leverage all the inputs you're giving in the training business, but then get an outcome and go away, right? But the good thing which happened in 2021 was, of course, all these learnings coming in and us building out an online infrastructure where we put in tons of effort on content, the platform, the product itself, and how can the user actually be willing to spend 3-4 hours a day on the platform to really rigorously practice and implement what is being taught, right? That infrastructure got built really well in 2021 for us. 2022, we started moving to upfront paid programs, right? The idea was very simple that, and this model was again a semi-pay after placement, where the tuition fees for the program is really paid by the student. So if the student is clear that you need to have intent to upskill, and that is where you bring in and you pay the tuition fee to us, you have a post-placement fees which you have to pay us after we get you placed, right? But if you don't complete the program and work hard and upskill yourself for the tuition fee you're paying in, you really won't succeed on placements, right? So the expectation setting was much better, much more clearer here, and more skin in the game from the student, which was coming in. 2022 was a year where we scaled up the online upskilling business really well. I would say that was also a time in the market where IT hiring was still peaking, right? A lot of youth, super aspirational to get into tech, but not even very, very clear about what exactly is needed to get there, what lies ahead there, was willing to come in and go through a program which is known for getting career outcomes, right? So the brand which we had developed was that we deliver continuous career outcomes, which we've done really well in 2020, even in 2021 for that matter, right? So and that gave us a lot of organic push in 2022, where even for our upfront paid programs, there was high demand in the market. And even if we could see the clutter in the market was increasing, like probably 100 odd players might have come up in 2022 running online upskilling programs to get you a job guaranteed tech role, right? And a lot of those were coming up in the market. Still, we were able to do it with CACs in control profitably, were able to scale it to a decent top line, right? And I think by the end of 2022, some things started to get clearer to us that and we started asking these hard questions to us, but even then the business was moving at a high pace with a lot of momentum. And I think those are few mistakes in hindsight, which we realized that even if we were asking ourselves the hard questions, that completion rates are dropping in front of us, right? Like we could see that happen. We could probably intuitively hypothesize that student is back to spending 70% of their life offline now. He's not spending 6 hours a day online on my platform and then getting those other 3 hours to spend on Instagram, right? Now he's getting those 5 hours online. He's going to spend those 3 hours on Instagram. And that is where you see the student motivation, the lack of community is starting to play that role, right? And it's a tough bullet to bite, because you feel you have PMF, and you are at a decent, significant scale. You have a team to run. You have an entire P&L to manage. And I think that is where we started seeing that very, very actively. And that pushed us. And not just that thought process pushed us, and the like the harder questions we were asking, I think 2023 all the more made it clearer for us कि ये sustainable नहीं है, right? We could see कि competition had arisen, CACs were increasing for us also. So many players, very well funded, spending very, very aggressively on getting that customer, probably operating at 80 to 100% CACs, right? And so that space started getting even more competitive. And as soon as we started, I think, losing money also in that year, we could realize that really need to go back to the drawing board and first solve for the product, right? Is the product going to continuously generate learning outcomes and learning engagement to the tune which we want? If that is fixed, and that is fixed sustainably for a which doesn't vary based on maybe small hiring cycle changes uh, or certain consumer shifts, how can we really preempt those and keep transitioning that, right? So where does that model lie is the place to first experiment, right? And I think 2023 really pushed us to do that. 2024 is when we had started experimenting with hybrid learning, right? Intuitively, all of us know that in person will work better, right? I know if any of you like is an educator themselves and takes online classes versus taking an offline class, it's very, very intuitive to compare the difference there, to compare the kind of engagement the class really has with you, right? And to be able to look at each student and to be able to get them to become a community becomes much more easier, right? Like what we were discussing in the room earlier, that you can put up an online discussion forum, an online discussion room, and a computer room different there, etc., etc. But no one really engages in that meaningful fashion, which they would probably do it organically without you even pushing them into a different room when they are spending hours in the same room together across months, right? So 2024, I think we could see that hybrid learning is really solving it, right? I of course have put some numbers also in the next slide, but learner completion rates were out of the roof. Learner NPS was very, very high because every student, I think, was getting that I think the NPS really gets driven when the student himself believes that I have learned what has been taught today, right? I am able to go back and connect the dots of what has been taught in class today and implement it there, right? And we could see that happening from the very initial stages. Of course, by default, going hybrid makes some things solved for you that the learners have higher intent, right? You are asking them to come to a particular location across the next 8 months and spend 10, 12 hours a week at that place, right? So the serious folks are more likely to enroll in such a program who really want to do it, right? So I think that's been an area last year where we've tried and figured out to an extent how this can work. How can this become a this solve for learning outcomes at a higher scale? And parallelly, how can it become a business where the GTM or the CAC element, acquisition element, was not really solved for in digitally in 2023 for us or for any other player whatsoever, right? How can we really solve it by going hybrid also, right? Because the CAC and GTM element still remains, and how do you really acquire learners and cohorts in hybrid learning at a CAC which leaves enough space for you to have some contribution margins also, and leaves enough space for you to invest in the cost of delivery, right? Because that is a place which you need to really balance. That how do I balance CAC and COGS so that in the longer run, I think the higher you invest in COGS, the lower your future CAC will be. That is how I look at it, right? Of course, you need to invest it meaningfully so that you are able to drive those outcomes. But so that room really needs to be there in the business, right? So that was the idea. In 2025, started to scale hybrid learning, I would say, fairly early. And just to give you context of where the business is, currently we've got 3 centers in Noida, Pune, and Hyderabad. These are on offline learning centers also, and a place where student comes in, and an acquisition experiential center also, right? And before we scale it to and replicate this to multiple more cities, the idea is first to still lay out the SOPs in more detail, still build out the right structures at these centers and how will they operate and replicate themselves. Plus, of course, a ton of challenges which I love brainstorming about, which I've put in the further slides. Yeah, how is the hybrid model doing? So completion rates are up 1.5x, right? Attendance was the first metric to track. Very, very quickly was able to track that. Was able to see month on month how much retention are we able to see across, and apart from like comparing it with online. CACs are down by 50%, which was the good part. Right. And now that at a place where we have gotten, right, after spending 6-8 months at a particular location, having physical presence, more than 50% monthly enrollments we drive at those centers are word of mouth and organic, right? Most of them are, in fact, course inquiry walk-ins who come in, take an assessment, and purchase the program, right? So the pedagogy is again very, very, I would say, a lot of tweaking and experimenting, which we are still doing here. It's not the ideal or most optimized way of learning by far, but I think it has still been able to create a decent delta. And what we've learned on the go, of course, I'll be happy to share that. Typically, a learner spends 6 to 12 hours based on the domain they are training for. The domains we are primarily focused on are data analytics, software development, right? This is the time they spend every week with instructors face to face in person in a classroom, right? Of course, there's continued learning online. Continued learning is a necessity. How much of that can be done online, how much of that needs to be done in person is still to be figured out for us also. It's a question which we are parallelly experimenting with. Completely implementation driven curriculum, no doubt about it. The instructors who come in are from the industry. Imagine a engineer with 5 years of work experience at a Hotstar coming in and teaching these students on a weekend, spending 5 hours with them, right? And weekly assessment and counseling in person. So I think this is something which we have learned, right? That really works. That the assessment really needs to happen offline, right? Even if some part of the learning is happening online, some classes are in person, but the assessment really needs to be offline, and the student needs to be given that mirror, the reflection of where they are, and be given that counseling and motivation in an in-person environment. We've adopted this very, very strongly across all our centers, in all our programs, where we do weekly assessments, right, at the center. And I think, again, all of it is just looking back at history and how things have worked, right? And if any of you have gone through like that rigorous JE grind, right? Every week, 6 hours, every Sunday, you write those practice tests, right? And discuss them, and 9 hours are done. And that's how you spend your Sunday, right? And I think that rigor really puts you ready for the next week, right? That next Sunday, how much do I need to score? What do I really need to do to be able to get a better rank, right? So I think weekly assessment and talking to each student on a weekly basis and telling them what exactly is the gap and which they need to fill, solving that particular issue for them, that has really worked well. That is a part of pedagogy which we have adopted across all our programs, and still a lot to figure out, of course. This is just a photo of our Noida center's reception. I just yeah, please.
It's very quick. What is the duration of the program?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I missed that. So the program duration varies from 5 months to 8 months, right? Like a full stack software development program goes on for 8 months. A data analytics program goes on for 5 months. A front-end development only program goes on for 5 months. Right? So that's the period.
Like only once in a week he has to be in person to the.
Not really. So it depends. We've got weekday morning, we've got weekend morning, all sorts of batches put up. So a weekday batch, for example, would come to the center 3 times a week, spend 2 to 3 hours based on the domain they are in. And a weekend batch would come and do a 4-hour session on Saturday and Sunday, right? So that's how they are structured. So the typical ticket size is anywhere from 50,000 to 80,000.
How many percentage of freshers versus someone who is already employed?
Absolutely. So the TG 50% I have is BTech Computer Science 2025. That is the final year student, plus 2024, which is the just graduated out pool, right? And the remaining 50% has 20% of engineering from non-CSIT domain folks coming in, another 20% across BCA, MCA folks, and then another 10% who is non-technical degree altogether, right? And who is willing to make that switch.
So all of them are having no jobs, and they are
okay. From an experience POV, again, 60% is either in final year or just graduated the last year, right? Around 30% is working professional in the 0 to 2 year segment, and 10% is pre-final year and before, the enthusiastic, motivated college kids who want to do something early and stand out. Yeah. Perfect.
Would this have been achieved without an investment already?
Sorry.
The learning,
Yeah.
the centers, and I'm assuming you're only doing hybrid learnings today.
We do have some online programs also, but they also have a hybrid element. Like a month, like the online program, the student needs to come to the nearest center once a month, right? And give an assessment or attend a hiring drive with us. And then after the hiring drive, get their performance assessed, right? So some element of hybrid kicking in everywhere. We are still, I would say, streamlining and trying to categorize it better, that what is the learner who should look at purchasing a program where he needs to come once a month versus what is the learner who needs to come 3 times a week, right? I think that is still being streamlined to a large extent. The other question, would this have been done without investment? I think definitely. I think fundamentally now I believe that education business needs to be built sustainably. It's a negative working capital business, right? It is being bought on trust. You can keep your costs super low initially, create amazing word of mouth. I think like any local coaching center you pick up, that's how they've been built, right? Across 10 years, started with 10 students, probably the teacher was amazing and now has 500 kids lined up, never raised a dime, always made money on it, right? So I think, and the cash flow allows you to really reinvest into growth also, right? I think having money pushed us to grow faster probably at a time and not respond as fast to things and thoughts we had back of the mind, right? And I definitely feel it can be done without raising a ton of capital. Perfect. Some learnings, I think, very important one for us, which I doubled down on to some extent. Solve for product market fit first, of course, and keep questioning PMF time to time. I think we had a false sense of belief that we have PMF in online upskilling and we are able to grow it, scale it sustainably, profitably, etc. And I think the answer lies in your customers' anecdotal conversations and the data which you see from the outcomes POV, the learning outcomes, right? And there's enough data, since all of us have some element of online engagement, there's enough data for all of us to look at that. How much is the learner really gaining, right? What is the learning outcome coming out of it? And I think that we need to continuously do in the future also. I don't know how the consumer psychology of the next set of users would be, right? See, I think all of them are checking out their phones right now and figuring out what they want to do maybe tonight, right? And I don't know if they're going to explore a course like this, or they would want ultimate flexibility of maybe just browsing some reels and learning the content which they need to get employed. So I think we'll still have to keep questioning this in the future also, and we've sort of learned it the hard way.
For your three segments, 50-30 number you said, like, are the outcomes different, or is the one?
Yeah, I think outcomes are also different slightly, and the kind of the motivation to purchase the program or to enroll in such a program is also slightly different, right? For a working professional guy, I would say the thought process is like, I'm not in the most dire strait that give me the earliest possible outcome, right? I'm doing it to genuinely grow my skills, and I know in the next coming time, I'll figure out how do I really want to make a transition, right? For a graduate who's just about to graduate or already graduated, that mentality is totally different. Like, get me the first job I can get into, right? And for a college student who's super motivated, he's primarily coming in to learn, right? He really wants to build amazing projects, get that implementation, be focused on how can I crack the day one company coming to my campus offering the highest CTC, right? So motivations do differ, definitely. Plus their schedules are different. The time they can invest is different. The kind of format they want is slightly different. I think all of those nuances also exist.
You think of adding more programs to this structure, like digital learning, maybe electric mobility or electric? I come from that.
So I think for us, the question has always been that how do we reverse engineer it, right? Like, कहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा jobs हैं अभी जिसके लिए actually मैं train करके outcomes develop कर सकता हूँ. And that's always been the backtracking factor, and that is why tech became like I could see like two broad areas when I was thinking of and reverse engineering this, that either it is IT and tech and entry level roles there, which is a tangible, real employment outcome right now. The second option is, okay, of course, all the sales, operations, relationship managers, BPOs, etc., which is tangible, real outcome with a decent volume in the market right now. The problem with the latter was it's not really that aspirational for the student you're wanting to enroll, right? So the way to solve that problem with the industry really exists. Like to get good uh, consultative problem solving sales counselors is a pain for I don't know any B2C business. That is a pain continuously, right? And uh, so problems do exist there. We haven't yet been able to solve it. I think definitely some structural ways to solve it have been put forward. For example, by NIIT, right, where you do a program with a ICICI bank where you get an appointment letter on first day, right, and you really need to complete the program to be able to get the final offer letter, and that's a structural solve for someone who really wants to get into a job and has gotten over that aspiration कि यार 10 लाख से नीचे की जॉब में जाऊंगा ही नहीं मैं, right? So that part is done. So I think the models will definitely arrive to solve those also. I'm not so sure about how EV definitely is the future. I don't know how soon and what exactly will be that skill set where entry level folks will get absorbed in decent volumes by the industry, right? I still feel that is a domain where maybe folks with more understanding, more knowledge, more context might be getting in right now in higher numbers, but definitely up for brainstorming. Yeah.
I think you are doing especially on the engaging the placement sides and getting.
Yeah, I run a hardcore B2B sales team. I would say they go to every corporate wherever there is a potential job opening relevant for our kids. Knock their doors, send them an email, send them a LinkedIn, send them a WhatsApp, call them up. Just get them to listen to us, sit down in a room with us and understand the value prop, right? And majority companies where we are able to get that conversation in the room, the value prop is such where the company doesn't really have a lot to lose, right? We don't charge employers right now. So getting a pool of students who is trained exactly for you for what they want at no cost, at a better conversion of interview to offer does make sense to do a pilot, right? We've got more engagement methods with companies, honestly, right? Because beyond a certain scale, there are problems after that also. A lot of larger players have problems working with finishing schools or with ad hoc institutes. They want to work with campuses directly. They don't want to work with third-party vendors. How do you navigate that? What else can you come out with? If you're not able to deliver on the scale and diversity of roles which a company wants, right? You will never be the preferred partner. They might hire once, do a pilot. Next time they are hiring 50 more kids, you might or might not get a call, right? So how do you build more retention with these companies, right? So that I can solve, the more I solve their problem, the more I become the go-to person for them to call. And definitely having a larger pool of employment opportunities, placement opportunities in your hand, in your control, has to be a solve for you because the market we are in, it's highly outcome driven, right? Career outcomes driven. So if you don't have a larger pool of opportunities, then the number of enrollments you're bringing in, it's a problem, right? Because the expectation you're setting here is that you have placement opportunities for them, and for them the task now is just to work bloody hard and become industry ready. So you need to fulfill that part of your promise also. So definitely that's something for us to solve. We are still not there. I think we're still trying to figure out ways to crack enterprise clients, right? How do I work with a Tech Mahindra or an Infosys, right? Still a lot to navigate there. But to an extent, I think we've solved certain parts of it where we are able to get in a decent volume of placement opportunities. But it's hardcore sales. Like to answer your problem, how do we do that? It's hardcore sales. It's a team which is working, has a certain amount of targets also, right? That you need to really place these many kids. And like our targets are, since we're having it very candid, I'll put our targets are more about like, what is the total CTC of students you have placed each month, right? That's the target for every placement team member, right? Like, आपने 50 लाख CTC लगवाया, इस महीने नहीं लगवाया, right? So that's the target, right? So that is where, and that's where the incentive also comes in. Even if we are not making any money from the employer side, there's still a small incentive for that team to get those outcomes, right? So that's how we work that out.
The conversion from your students applying,
Yeah,
getting admitted or cracking.
much better. So we look at around 25% conversion, right? Because we've become, I would say it has taken a lot of time, right? So it's easier being said here, but I think that matchmaking of the student which I have with all the data sets I have, with probably that student at least gone through more than 3 mock interviews in their journey. So using all of that data, how can I really match make to give the company also great interview conversion rates at the end of it, because that's where I'll be able to retain. Plus also ensure that I don't miss out on my student getting placed, right? So fill rate भी पूरा भरना है, right? तो आसान तरीका तो ये है कि 100 के 100 बच्चे भेज दो और 5 ओपनिंग भर जाएगा. But then how do you make it optimize on both sides? Please.
So you said that your online program also has some offline components.
Correct.
So in that case, your catchment area becomes restricted.
So right now, again, absolutely. So right now, what we've done is we've implemented this for the sales of online programs, which happens through our centers, right? So almost 30% of our online programs are also sold through the centers only now. Like a student has actually walked into that center, has understood everything, and now he feels that, okay, I'm maybe 300 kilometers off the center. So I don't want to move and do an offline program or a hybrid program. I would do an online program. But the real hack to get them to the center is to get them to attend a hiring drive every month, right? Like take part in this hiring drive, get yourself assessed, right? Worst case, you get rejected, doesn't really matter. But at least you get a detailed performance report, right? And you get an experience. And like another very small on-ground insight is that majority of these students, their colleges have struggled and failed to provide them genuine job opportunities also. Forget the career outcome or placement. They probably in their entire final year only attended 2 job drives. Rest were sales companies, sir. That's the answer you will get, right? Like, ki, sir, 2 ही मिली थी opportunity, बाकी सब sales की थी, right? So even that is valued highly, right? Like being able to get an opportunity to write a real company's test is also an opportunity. And if they are going through the off-campus application wala grind, they are even more receptive to this, right? Because you never get callbacks, right? As a fresher, like there are 5,000 applicants on every job post.
But the problem is how do you bring those employers for this job fairs and all?
So we don't really bring them. So I have a beautiful video there, right? Which I can play at the end of it, which walks through the entire employer's value prop. And also a few questions on our GTM, which are there, which the answer lies there. But we don't really get employers here. We tell employers that we will host, and majority, another on-ground insight is majority employers right now are facing this real problem of conducting online assessments. Right? COVID के पहले था कि we had to visit 50, 100 campuses to do our campus hiring. COVID के बाद was like, I can do this online. Wow, what a waste of cost and time I was doing before this. Now after that they are like कि ये तो reliable ही नहीं है. I have hired this kid after coming and sitting on the first day I realized इसको आता ही नहीं है. Right? What did I hire? How was the interview process? How did he really do that? Right? So the reliability in online assessments is a question mark. Right? I think the best people to answer it is all the students here. Like there's an online assessment, we'll top, right? There's an offline assessment, oh shit, we'll have to study, right? So I think when we give employers that edge, that we'll assess kids specifically on the skills you want in an offline environment, right? Offline invigilated. Again, it's a very similar, it's an online proctored tool. The student brings in their laptop, writes the test, jo ghar pe karta. Just in an offline invigilated environment right now. We're able to do that because offline center ka leverage hai, right? As simple as that. So that is the value prop for them, which essentially strikes a chord to them, right? And I'll tell you more about it, of course, if you'd want to go deep there. But yeah, some learnings. Of course, this is a very summary because I wanted to keep this open after my monologue. So innovating on GTM, I think this is also a very a tricky place and easier said than done. We are still trying to figure out how does offline GTM in that periphery, in that catchment area really work, and what works best, वो तो अभी पता ही नहीं है क्योंकि attribution is a even bigger problem there, right? So, but digital marketing to inside sales, the traditional approach, that of course, that I can say confidently doesn't work, right? The level of trust the student has on your program, on your institute is just not there. You can't expect a sales counselor to call them up and be able to convince them or build enough trust to sell a 60,000 rupee, 70,000 rupee program, right? Like, of course, you can sell, but the conversion rates will prove out to be unsustainable, right? Which has happened with probably all the players who are scaling it through these digital channels. Everyone has struggled with the same CAC problem. Even you try hard with your marketing campaigns, your sales execution, sales training, the efficiency, I'll solve for that efficiency, but it just doesn't get there, right? So that clear learning for us has been that we need to build a pull business, right? Push business nahi banana hai, pull business banana hai. Let's work hard on building that brand after every transaction, every student who is coming in. Let's give them that experience that they start selling for you, and you're able to genuinely drive organic walk-ins, referrals to that tune and to that volume where CACs are automatically in control. Plus, again, one more innovative thing which we have done, which I'll come to later, of course, after inviting your thoughts. But that was a clear learning for us. And I don't know how people innovate and what else are you guys doing to keep CACs in control, keep the business profitable. And I'm very open to those ideas because I keep thinking a lot about it.
What is your CAC?
Our CAC is around 28% right now, which is still high. But this includes everything. This is a fully loaded CAC, fully loaded मतलब sales भी है, marketing भी है, sales का leadership भी है, customer support भी है इसमें, सब है. Profitable? We are profitable. Yes. Third, yeah, of course, education products are sold on trust, right? I think under promise, over deliver, and most importantly, have more placement opportunities than enrollments, right? All of us, I think, have seen this cycle. If you've been in this industry for last 4 years, so I think we've all seen the cycle of going there, reaching crazy top lines, crazy growth numbers being reported. But eventually figuring out that at whatever scale you get to, the problem will not solve for itself, right? It's just making the problem worse. So the sooner you can course correct and build that foundation stronger, the easier and better and less stressful your scaling journey would be, right? Some hybrid learning things which we have learned, right? I think the good parts, right? So very, very clearly the pros which I have seen is, one, the learner is forced, right? The learner has forced themselves first and then is continuously forced to spend that time in the center, right? The parents know that, dude, you can't just be in your room on a laptop and watch Netflix in the hours when you had a class. You could do that in online. You need to really go to the center. Why are you at home, right? So one, they are forced to carve that time out, right? You can't really procrastinate it कि अभी नहीं session का recording रात को देख लूंगा, and that never comes, right? So they're forced to carve out that time, and it instills a sense of discipline, schedule, consistency in them, right? The second part, in-person interaction, much less distractions, right? You're not opening your phone in between. You're sitting in a class. You know, I'm looking straight at you. Stop using your phone, please, right? So I can tell that. So that makes it like much more engaging. And third, what we have seen is that a sense of belongingness is much higher, right? Like for my online program alumni, when I connect with them, when I'm in Pune or Hyderabad now, the turnout might be 70% of those alumni come in when I host a meet or so, right? In offline, one student from their batch got placed, and we were like, this weekend we'll have a half an hour celebration, cake cutting in the class. 100% folks there, right? The sense of belongingness is much, much higher. You've spent that much time, you have that community of learners where you know कि नहीं यार शिवम तो मेरे से अच्छा था, इसकी पहले प्लेसमेंट हुई है, पता है, right? That realization is there that I need to really learn from him and get to his level to be able to get that outcome now. So I think those advantages start kicking in all the more with hybrid learning, right? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, please.
Hybrid with city centers.
Yeah. We're still to lot of questions to answer and figuring out कि कैसे scale होगा, कैसे होगा, और पढ़ाई का भी exact format कैसे evolve होके आएगा. But for a majority of the students, right? And I say majority, not even like some percentage. A majority students there will need to be in-person element to be able to push them enough to first absorb that content and then push them enough to further go back and take that pain to connect the dots in their mind of what they have learned and implemented by themselves. So I think majority के लिए चाहिएगा. Sharp folks तो हैं, no doubt about it, right? Like the most motivated and curious and figure out ability kids, they do it irrespective. They'll just do it with YouTube probably, right? And with not even YouTube, उसके पहले वो blog पढ़ के कर लेते थे. They'll read up documentation and pull up something, right? They'll just use Stack Overflow and documentation to be able to build something out of it. So I think those kids are always there, and that is not probably the ideal TG we are all solving for. But for the other majority, I think in-person element is there to stay. How we will scale it, I am still not very completely confident on that answer. Maybe there is a regional experience center and a counseling place and a large lavish classroom there where the student comes in, takes that experience, understand everything about their career, gets the most relevant assessment and counseling for their career, and then enrolls in maybe some sub branch right across the city in Noida ki jagah Pitampura, right? So I don't know how the model will scale exactly and which cities to go first. Should you replicate in multiple city first, multiple centers, or go to a lot of different cities? Still to figure out a lot there. But I think uh, this is the product which solves for it. And again, with all the learning, very, very open in my mind that we'll have to keep preempting कि इसको change कब कितना करना है, right? And so that part is still there. Yeah. So that was like a gist of where we are and some of our learnings. But again, some very, very open brainstorming problem statements which I just put there. And of course, we can pick any other problem statements also to discuss. But one of them was like, what are you talking about? How do you really do offline JTM? We haven't done it in the past, right? We are still learning. हम बहुत कुछ करते हैं, ऑटो के पीछे भी बैनर लगाते हैं, इधर उधर भी बैनर लगाते हैं, कॉलेजों में भी जाते हैं, और attribution is extremely difficult, जो कि हम our like right brain used to work well. तो हम कर पाते थे कि यार ये इस पिक्सल से एट्रीब्यूट हो गया है, सो इसका क्या कितना आ रहा है, इस चैनल का इतना आ रहा है. अभी जब ऑफलाइन कर रहे हैं, एट्रीब्यूशन इज अ प्रॉब्लम, राइट? यू डोंट रियली नो बिकॉज 3 months later, after I did a session in that college, someone walked in from that college. Now, did he attend my session? Was it he saw a hoarding somewhere? Did he see a online ad, or did he interact with my social media? I don't know, right? Or was he referred by someone in his college who had enrolled 6 months back? Right? So attribution is not very easy and clear when you are doing trying to generate demand across the board with organic value add, I would say, and not really very performance driven approaches towards marketing. So that is a place where if anyone has experience, very, very happy to learn, right? That what works well, what works better. We are trying, like, we are in a mode right now where we are putting our hands everywhere and trying to do everything and see and understand and learn. But if someone has a lot of learnings, those are very welcome. And all of us have been in the education market. So if anyone has core insights on how real learning outcomes get boosted all the more, right? I think that would be a lovely discussion. And of course, AI in learning, it's the talk of the town. Everyone, AI will solve for this, that, etc. I personally, and I push our team a lot to keep experimenting with AI use cases, right? With voice bana ke dekh. We have in fact built an AI mock interviewer. So when the student comes and gives an assessment, they also give an AI mock interview there, right? So we are trying to incorporate and see, but what I've seen is that core learning or majority part of that learning is still not being done by AI, right? Like it might help with doubt solving. It helps with custom content generation, question curation, with these assessments, right? Those are like ad hoc adjacencies where I think we've been able to use AI to some extent right now. If anyone has like figured out better AI use cases or which has like generated tremendous value, because I equated and tried to analyze the market ki pure AI driven learning say is any company which has been able to monetize at a scale also, right? Because monetization at scale sort of proves ki customer is probably gaining some value there. तभी वो कितना कर पा रहे monetize, but I haven't been able to figure that bit out yet. So very open question again to get thoughts from everyone. Of course, there's one more, but that's a question I believe everyone would be bored with, so I didn't put it here. Ki, how do you see the skill landscape and employment landscape changing in the next 2-3 years, right? All of us know AI will cut across some jobs, but human reliability rates will still stay, etc. But if there are deeper thoughts, happy to engage on those also. Yeah. So yeah, that was like a quick run through.
Talked about something in between. I heard you say experience center something.
So these work as so I'll put it better.
Very similar to the Unacademy ones, the recent.
Not really. So all of the centers which we have right now are a learning center also. where maybe a student walks in and wants to purchase an online program, but still attends a offline class, interacts with the instructor there, and then makes that purchase, right? So that's the experience they get. The second part of experience which they get, right, is also how we do our GTM, and that is what has sort of helped us get our CACs lower, I would say, is we are able to, we like fundamentally sat down कि कैसे करें. पहले एक महीना हमने ऑफलाइन सेंटर डाला, सोचा ऑफलाइन बैच बनाना है, लाइक कि चलो 30 किलोमीटर रेडियस में ऐड चला दो, लीड्स आएंगे, उनसे बात करेंगे. यही आता था हमें, डिजिटल मार्केटिंग करना और कॉल करके पूछना कि सर क्या देख रहे हो. तो दैट इज वेयर वी स्टार्टेड विथ, राइट. एंड देन वी आर लाइक कि ये तो सीपीएल और महंगा है, क्योंकि आपको पेरीफेरी भी लिमिट कर दिया है आपने अब अपना, राइट. तो और महंगे सीपीएल आ रहे हैं इसमें. तो सो दिस कैक अप्रोच फॉर ऑफलाइन लर्निंग विल नॉट वर्क, राइट, कि दिस इज नॉट द जीटीएम विच विल वर्क. तो हाउ डू वी रियली वर्क दिस आउट? सो what we could fundamentally understand, the core insight again was what I mentioned, कि बच्चे को मौका ही नहीं मिला जॉब ड्राइव में बैठने का, and company is really struggling with the part कि मेरे को offline assessed reliable बच्चा दे दो. क्योंकि a lot of our partner companies also, when they were hiring from us, they were like, can you send your kids offline for the final interview? And like that will limit my folks a lot, because मेरे पास दिल्ली एनसीआर में तो ये 50 ही बच्चा है, इनको ही भेज पाऊंगा मैं नोएडा आपके पास इंटरव्यू करने, बाकी जो बॉम्बे में बैठ के कोर्स कर रहा है वो नहीं आ पाएगा. So that will limit me. But then that was a constant push which we were seeing from a lot of hiring partners, right? And that is where this insight came कि यार इनको offline assessment और वो reliability चाहिए. If I can give them those interview conversion rates, they'll probably be much happier. So what it started as an experiment. We did a hiring drive for a partner company. They had come in with 50 openings. We were able to fill 11, right, from my trained pool. And I was like कि बाकी की भर देते हैं आपकी, हम आपके लिए एक ड्राइव, जॉब ड्राइव अपने ऑफलाइन सेंटर में we'll host it. We have a assessment platform, right? We've always built a assessment platform, क्योंकि assessment के बिना, reliable assessment के बिना, learning continuously, you can't really tweak on it, right? So we had an assessment platform. We're like, we'll build a custom assessment for you. Currently you're running an online assessment on 1,000 kids. आपका cost, I know what HackerRank is charging you, right? So I know you're spending lakhs there. I'll give you a much better deal, right? Just do a hiring drive at my center. I mobilize the kids for you who are eligible for you. They come and write the assessment which you want in an offline invigilated manner. Super reliable shortlist which I share with you. And you get amazing interview conversion rates. You save tons of your interview bandwidth, etc. Right? And this is what we did first in our Noida center. And that drive had 1,000 kids coming in. Right? There was a line from the second floor till the ground, all waiting. Next drive we started implementing slot system. कि भाई slot book करके आओ. Right? इस दिन drive है, मत आ जाओ. And we could see this is mobilizing kids really fast. We could see that after they get a detailed performance report, realization strikes. Right? कि यार, the gap is wide. The hired guy is scoring 80%. I'm scoring 10%. How will I get placed? Right? So that realization strikes. And the best part, we were able to give companies great fill rates. Right? वो उसका जो भी बचा था, अभी मेरे पास वो React Native या Flutter engineer चाहिए, I might not be able to fill it. With the hiring drive, I'll do one for you, right? It mobilizes candidates to my center and I get it across to you. So it started working as a GTM play also for us. And then these kids, when they used to come for a job drive, that experience, and after that being able to counsel, look at their result, look at a deep skill analysis, be able to give an AI mock interview, that experience in itself for them was really so value adding कि यार यही तो career counseling चाहिए था, net. This is the guidance which I was not getting, right? Which is hard also, not like some uncle sitting across and telling नहीं बेटा data science कर लो, उसमें future अच्छा है, right? Like this is what I really want, that okay, this is my understanding, you grill me on it, you tell me what I really need to do to get there. And that sort of started getting, and plus a lot of placements we started getting extra, right? Which we would have missed out on. And that started driving a lot of word of mouth in like those 100 colleges around us in Noida and Greater Noida, right? And you do that consistently, and then you start seeing the power of compounding, where now you have so many walk-ins coming in, so many folks to the center, where someone who attended a job drive referred this guy because this guy was looking at a training. He didn't even know about us. I haven't spent a dime on getting this customer, right? And this guy just attended a job drive and told him.
So your own students are like?
No, these are only with companies where our students are not able to fill all their openings, let's say, right? So I do it for only those companies. Assume that every center has around 4 or 5 placement drives happening every month, right? Around 3,000 to 4,000 kids being mobilized to the center, being assessed every month, right? So we do it with our hiring partners only, but we do it for
students?
No. These are open community. This is in our community. We've built a huge community also leveraging that, right? More than 3 lakh students now across our community. And like for a job role and a job test, a student is more than willing to come down. Right. So, and each and every lead is by default qualified, right? They are 2024 BTech unplaced student, right? That is your teaching. So that's how I think. So that's the experience I was talking about, and that's the GTM bit which we've been able to crack. But still, like majority of these customers are not looking to do a course right away, right? They don't want upskilling right now. They are like, और पैसा नहीं लेना है घर से, right? आप बताओ job कैसे लगाओगे मेरी, right? So that problem still exists, right? But I think the folks who really want to upskill, they automatically start thinking that these guys have placement outcomes. They are giving me an opportunity for free, literally, right? So और कुछ नहीं तो इनकी free drives में ही बैठ के place हो जाऊंगा अगर आता होगा. So that's like a
Do you have an assessment test for them?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So, my favorite topic, we've talked about it quite a bit, the third one,
Uh.
offline. And we talked about it earlier. Have you thought about physical activation? Now the business is largely physical, right? So think of opening your center we talked about it, right? In large institutions in Noida and Greater Noida, which have empty classrooms. It might actually centralize your demand,
Yeah.
and give you the physical infrastructure, and you don't have to worry about setting it up or anything. Effectively, what Newton has done, right? Where it's gone to a Ajinkya D.Y. Patil or a Rishi Hood and taken an entire floor, and that's their campus. Does that give you scale also?
I think definitely an opportunity for us to still explore more on, right? Like we've started doing a few hiring drives at campuses now, right? Because that is something which you can get a campus to buy in almost the first call, right? We still haven't been able to crack with them because whenever you talk to a college or a campus, I think there's some knack of that. How can I save money or how can I make money, right? That's the first thought in their mind. Like what is the value comes next. Right, like कि तू मेरे को और कुछ महंगा तो नहीं बेचना है, right? Like so that's the vibe. And or either they are trying to make some money कि अच्छा हमारे यहाँ कोर्स कराओ सर हमें 20% दे देना,
Revenue share करना.
revenue share दे देना, आप इतना दे देना, you use their infra, right? So we still haven't experimented there. I think it's still there for us to figure out कि which campus के अंदर do we set up a small offline infra. I do think it doesn't solve for branding as much as you want, right? And the kind of recall the student wants कि यार मैं AccioJob से पढ़ा हूँ या मैं gyms के AccioJob में gyms में जो AccioJob है या महाराजा अग्रसेन में जो AccioJob का वो है खुला हुआ उसमें पढ़ा हूँ, right? So I'm not very like I don't have an answer.
Because it'll give basically it gives you that that go to market goes away in terms of setting up a center, right? You can just go. All you need is like a interior decorator to come in for a weekend and put all your branding, and the floor is available. Right?
It definitely cuts down capex by a large margin.
And to RJ and Vijay, does regulatory framework allow a educational institution, which by default is a non-profit, right? Does it allow it to engage with some service and earn money from that?
So let's talk about journey, because there's no clear answer. If you are strictly in the spirit of the law,
Oh,
but then there are many things that happen because of good legal advisors. So we were told once, so let me not take his time, that anything which is not illegal is legal. So it's a gray area, but that's a choice. Sometimes you take a risk. You say, I'm prepared. I'm going to find some problem. That's the maximum hit. I'll bear it and then get out. If you're doing it that's a business model, then you have to worry. But be more circumspect.
I would say the risk is not worth the.
Yeah, but I think definitely want to get into non-tech. Yeah, like primarily focused on business operations role.
Okay, so I think great session. I have to say, I'm really so excited to see how you're navigating the path, and that's what we've been discussing in many conversations. That as founders, you don't go into the jungle with the searchlight and danda yourself, kind of thing. Right? So you're doing that. It's very fascinating to see compared to last year and 1 or 2 meetings we had. So you're active, you're engaged, you don't have all the answers, you have more questions, and you seem to be enjoying. That's important. But questions, I think.
Definitely the video. Can you show the right? You can go to the. These are some just photos I put in. So this is
What
one of.
happened? We are not discussing those three topics.
We are, I guess. I just opened it up for them to give answers to that.
Oh, acha.
I don't have a lot of answers there. So this is a video we send across to our companies, telling them about how this offline hiring drive really works for them. Right? It's a new concept. A lot of companies are not able to grasp at the first pitch. So there's a quick 2-minute video or so which I've put in there. नहीं चल रहा है क्या? प्ले करो. हाँ चलेगा. कोई नहीं, गूगल ड्राइव लिंक है ना, उस पर क्लिक करो. उस पे है. हाँ बस इस पे क्लिक. Oops. You try on Myla. ठीक है, my till the time please.
How do you position your brand in the marketplace where there is, let's say, similar players like you have Masai School, Newton, Next Wave, Function Up, Scalar, right? And then Simply Learn, Upgrade. Everybody is offering data science course and everybody is behind. Right? So how do you position your brand?
So yeah, honestly, it's again a very tough question for us, which we are also trying to find. इसमें कुछ अलग से differentiation कैसे create होगा in terms of the brand perception, I would say. हाँ, brand perception, क्योंकि in the end we are a training and placement company, very clearly in like raw layman understanding. We are a training and placement company. A lot of colleges training placement cell doesn't do their job though in the most efficient manner. We try and do it in the most efficient manner for you, right? Simply put, I think the first differentiator here is that none of them are into hybrid learning, right? It's a hard business. It has a lot of operations, no doubt about it. None of them are doing that, right? A few of them have gotten into the undergraduate segment, I think, but every player you talked about, I think, has moved focus from their own brands online upskilling programs, be it Scalar, be it Masai, for example, still has lesser focus on their pay after placement now and more on probably 70% of their revenue from NIIT University partnered courses, right? IIT Mandi, Rupert, Guwahati, you know the drill. So I think none of the players have taken this route. All of us were in the same soup. I can tell you that.
Scalar is running their own courses. Scalar and Simply Learn.
Yeah, but not again. So again, differentiator there. Scalar still has its online program, but earlier on, if Scalar was doing it at 10x scale, now it is probably at 2x scale in that online program, because never been able to crack the code of making money through those online programs. Their focus has now moved towards Scalar School of Technology, Scalar School of Business, which is the model which is arising, and that's being scaled, right? Similarly, I would say Masai has taken that route of university partnered courses, where to find a way where you can make money also, run the business profitably. Like no one of us has been able to solve here. Pure online upskilling program in your own brand का CAC कैसे solve कर दूं at scale, right? So I think Next Wave has put up NIIT. I think the growth in revenue across the last 2 years for them has been driven through NIIT, more than 1,000 enrollments, right? For a 20 lakh rupee BTech program. So it's very, very, like, it's a model altogether. All of us need to explore and get answers to key. Is that something which is going to maybe replace a few universities and colleges or not? But to answer your question, I think I still think कि ऐसा कोई moat create करने के लिए execution and grind से होगा through great processes, great pedagogy, great consistent outcome delivery, and then building that brand, which also becomes a moat. But वो बनाने के लिए तो your job here essentially is to keep your execution on point, right? Get the right folks in. Don't run to scale that very, very fast. Get the outcomes which you have promised. Do that consistently. You might see slightly slower growth coming in initially, but I think that will cement the foundation so that you can go that unlock and maybe 10x it then altogether. Yeah.
What is your percentage of placement of a student who completes?
So typically of who completes, completion पे जाओगे तो बहुत high हो जाएगा, 94-95% आ जाएगा. But completion के बिना we measure it raw कि enrollment से placement देखो, completion से placement मत देखो, right? Enrollment से placement देखोगे तो around 60% के आसपास होगा.
Because we were tracking students of Masai school, and we found like typically 5%.
5% placement.
2000.
Here I would not discredit them, but because I have spoken with them and I've seen
50%.
they've scaled to more than 150 placements a month number, which is not easy because I've been running the same business for years. It's not very easy to get there. So I still give a lot of credit to them. I think they've done well. Right now, I think it's to choose. Like that's a experiment we also ran and evaluated, by the way, university partnered programs, right? Ki IIT ke naam pe and that certification, same course, same outcome, but can CAC become lesser, right? It's like a bait for you to evaluate and see. But then we decided to not go in that direction. That's a separate discussion, but that was a call which we took. And for them, I think that call is working better maybe. So that's where they're scaling the business.
How do you solve the quality input problem? Like most of the candidates who enroll into these courses, the quality of input is very poor, right? So let's say we are also hiring tech people in our company. We got call from all of these placement officers from so-called these tech companies who are in training of IT, right? All these Masai school and this. And then our team could not select even one. So actually, it was a time pass for us. We got like 200 selected candidates from all of these companies, and our tech team like rejected everybody, right? And then we hired from some colleges, like the Anand Sagar College in Bangalore, some NIT, some colleges. We could hire from different branches also. The problem is that many of the good candidates, they are not enrolling into these courses. They are self-learning, some online courses, something they are like not spending enough money, or like they are getting placed already. So the
even after all of that, even after you segment those kids as good kids and these one as poor kids, still after the good kids are gone, you are still left with a ton of companies who are struggling to get good developers, right? That's where you were, right? So I think input quality, if that is the question, right? So input quality, I think last time I met sir, I asked the same question, right? And I think the whole idea there is it is your mindset. Input quality solve करना आपका problem नहीं है, आपका problem है कि जो अभी आ रहा है आप उसको मना कैसे करोगे, राइट? आप कम में खुश कैसे होगे?
फिल्टर करना पड़ेगा ना, बहुत
फिल्टर करना तो बहुत इजी है यार. एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट लेना कौन सा मुश्किल काम है?
तो आपको कैंडिडेट ही नहीं मिलेगा.
तो नहीं, हाँ वो आप कम कैंडिडेट पढ़ा के खुश हो या नहीं हो, वो आपकी माइंडसेट है ना? तो आई थिंक दैट्स द क्वेश्चन यू आंसर्ड योरसेल्फ, राइट? कि आर यू ओके टू स्टार्ट विद अ बैच ऑफ 10 इंस्टेड ऑफ दोस एंड टेल दोस 40 किड्स सॉरी यार अभी नहीं हो पाएगा इस कोहॉर्ट में, राइट? सो एंड देन वो 10 जब निकालोगे, प्लेस कराओगे, तो अपने आप वो 10 और स्मार्ट किड्स भेजेगा आपके पास, तो वो 20 हो जाएंगे, फिर अगले साल 40 हो जाएंगे. Like you know how the cycle works after that, right? So I think that's the tough part. And it's very easier said than done.
We found the attitude problem. Yeah. So we could hire from NIT at 5 lakh per year.
Yeah.
Versus from the EdTech, they are saying like they were not serious in our interview. They said average salary 10 lakh मिल रहा है, आप 4-5 लाख वाला इंटरव्यू ले रहे हो, देख लो.
I think
so they were not very serious in our interview process also.
I would say थोड़ा सा जनरलाइजेशन है, बिकॉज
एक बात बताओ कि एक बच्चा जो कि 40% वाला घटिया कॉलेज से है, एवरेज कॉलेज से, उसने कहीं से कोर्स किया 4 महीने.
जी.
अब उसका एटीट्यूड ये कि मेरा तो एवरेज पैकेज 10 लाख, हाईएस्ट पैकेज 40 लाख, एंड आई एम सीइंग द वेबसाइट, राइट?
So I would say it's a gross generalization. First, I'll put it that way, right? That's untrue. Attitude is very subjective. हर कोहॉर्ट, हर एडटेक से कोई बच्चा मिलेगा जिसका एटीट्यूड ही होगा. बहुत सारे बच्चे मेरे कोहॉर्ट में आपको ऐसे मिलेंगे जो they will be like, yes, it's okay, I want to learn, even if you pay me a 4.5 lakh salary, it's okay for me to start. I am up for the grind for the year.
Minimum salary, if you are not getting this much, you don't have to pay anything.
Right. So that's a ISA मॉडल जो कंपनी कर रही है, जिसने 5 LPA गारंटी किया है, वो तो बोलेगी आपको कि 5 LPA के ऊपर हो तभी आप.
10 लाख था, अभी 5 लाख 6 लाख.
Okay, I am not sure. I think maybe one odd player I know जो 10 lakh minimum salary पे कर रहा था, but majority were 5 or 3.
5 lakh.
5 lakh, correct, right? But still, it's defined by the market, right? It's a free market at the end. मतलब अगर TCS अभी भी 3.5 lakh पे bulk hire कर पाता है, because the market is that way, right? As simple as that. So, and I would say I have seen reverse also, like going to an IIT and NIT and finding kids who are entitled just because of the previous academia credential they have, right? And still not having the best of attitude and mindset, or maybe the hard skills also. They haven't put in that grind. मतलब आप पहुंच गए अच्छी बात है, but you haven't put in that grind, right? So I think it has gone both ways. It would be slightly unfair to generalize कि EdTech cohort से जो आते हैं उनमें attitude है, क्योंकि what I have seen, it's rather opposite कि a lot of them are like come from a place where they're like कि just make me confident, make me learn and get me in the industry, like get me in the industry, get me started, and then I'll prove myself, right? I'll grow myself. So I have seen that for the majority. Nuances तो आएंगे ही, मतलब there's very difficult to subjectively evaluate every student's attitude and mindset beforehand. So yeah.
Okay, so I think let's show this and then close with this.
Oh. This the tool which we have created, right? So the AI takes care of generating every question. So if all of us give the same test right now, everyone will get a different question on the same topic, same difficulty level, same type. Plus it adds an element that you can start asking subjective questions, right? Like, and because it will get subjectively evaluated by AI also, which is missing in most of the set piece template assessments की DSA का कोड दे दो, एक MCQ दे दो 5, एक सूडो कोड पूछ लो, हो गया. Right, so that's something different here, and creating the assessment also becomes equally easy because you don't really need to go through every question and handpick it. You're literally prompting कि यार ask these kind of questions maybe, or this topic पे ask this kind of question. That's it. आगे बढ़ा थोड़ा सा back. So this is where the candidate is being asked follow-up questions on the answer they've given.
This happens within the offline center.
Yeah, actually बीच में जाओगे आपको सेंटर दिखेगा वहाँ पे टेस्ट लेते हुए. हाँ, so these are kids. The platform, they booked the slot at a particular time. They came into the center. They write their test here at the center because they can't write a test if they are not in the center, right? And so that's where. And if they are in the top 10%, they'll walk into a room, give a AI mock interview, and then go. Right? Then they'll get a short list of the top folks.
So big is your tech team and
So I think very lean tech team. We have only 6 people in the tech team right now.
So from the people who took the test, they are all your graduates, right?
No, not all are our graduates. So this is apart from our graduates. These are open candidates which we are doing at right.
So let's talk about your graduates.
Yes.
Of your graduates who, let's say, took this test and after that had the interview, because for these it is 28%, which is 1 in 3 succeed.
Yeah.
Right. In your graduates, from the time they went for the test, because there'll be a shortlisting at the test stage and then shortlisting at the end. What would that number be?
So our funnel of placements would also come out to be a very similar percentage. So let's say if today NIIT Limited is hiring 100 grads, right? I'll first give you my trained graduates. I'll give you a pool of like 50 top folks. I don't even need to get them to take a test. I have their skills very deeply evaluated through mock interviews, right? So for them, matchmaking is not like every company I need to do a different test for them, right? For that matchmaking, we have already set processes. I'll give you here, I have trained graduates, these 80 kids. I'll send those 80 first to you to hire 20 out of them, let's say. Then for your remaining 80 openings is where I do this. And if you only had 20 openings, I'll not do this, right? So that's how the current process is.
So before you send them for my interview, you have already done that shortlisting and done a matching.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's almost like replacing a college process, because
Yeah.
in a college they would largely want to do the first
But
shortlisting,
colleges don't have a
but they don't do it.
accurate way of doing it. So because this reduces the stress on the interviewer. Finally, he has 24 hours in a day and limited bandwidth, and he has a job to do.
This product you have created separately, this the assessment one.
That's a separate
Is
platform.
it for other people using it, or you are using just for your thing?
So when we built out the product, we were so excited, and a lot of our partner companies were so excited ki, can you give this tool to us and replace our hacker rank, right? We were like, oh, this seems like a very interesting business to get into. And then we did it. We've actually built more than 25 lakhs in revenue from this product being sold to companies, right? And then we cut it out. We pulled the plug on it कि नहीं बेचेंगे company को, ये इस side में product नहीं बनाना है, हमें ये focus ही नहीं है अभी, right? So we pulled that plug out, and we are now not selling this product to companies right now. That's a different team you need. That's a different DNA of B2B sales you need. तो अभी एक बना रहा हूँ business.
बनाएंगे हमारे.
So that's a different ball game which we haven't gotten into.
Very impressive. Yes.
Couldn't the student have taken the test at home and then come to the center for assessment?
That's the real problem, right? कि the at-home test taking का जो reliability आता ही नहीं है उन scores से.
It is not.
That problem is that, like, and we've done it.
Every test has a timer. Correct. So even if they are copy pasting, right? It's very
It's a
difficult.
battle. I'll tell you, it's a battle which is a very hard battle. There are AI tools for recruiters being built. There are AI tools for cheating being built. And then it's a war. And you need to keep fighting that war. And for what we realized is कि जैसे ही offline बिठाता हूँ, ये war खत्म हो जाती है मेरी. Right? So, and it's a war, and we've seen people cheat, and they have the most hackiest and creative ways, and you will be surprised. And then I learned this, now I'm solving this. The next time you'll be surprised again with something new. Right? So it's
You may have a fan club sitting at the
no, these guys will be my biggest haters. They'll be like, let me give an online test. Why are you getting me to an offline center?
Keep on saying that center-based exams are always better than online.
More importantly, he is able to drive that walk-ins.
Correct.
Future customers.
Yes.
If he does it online, there is no point.
Correct. No, I said take it online and then carry your score for walk-in.
All those guys, correct. All those guys who are eliminated are also potential customers.
Potential customers.
We lose them.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks.
Thank you.